Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Sarah Kells. I'm the admissions representative for K-State Online, and I'm joined here today by a few people in our food science office. We have Dr. Jeanette Thurston, Dr. Abby Nooch, and Dr. Deanna Retzlaff. And I'm really glad that you were able to join us. And we're going to go over our food science bachelor degree program and also a couple of our possibly our certificate programs, I believe. Go ahead and locate the chat feature on the Zoom meeting and just tell us where you're from and just where you're from and any fun facts about you. While everyone's doing that, we're just going to spend about 30, maybe 45 minutes at most with the presentation. And then the last part, we will focus on your questions. Feel free to put in any questions into the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll try to answer those either then or we might wait until the end. So yeah, make sure to really find that chat feature and tell us where you're from. Oh, great, Illinois. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Nooch, and we'll get started.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Sarah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So yeah, again, we're so glad to have all of you with us this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I do have some power. We're going to do a little bit of death by PowerPoint here for just a minute before we get to some of your questions. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you'll all be able to see the slides. All right, so let's see. Sarah, I'm assuming that it all looks good there and you can see the slides.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. So yeah, as Sarah mentioned, we're going to spend a little bit of time here this evening talking about the Bachelor of Science in Food Science and Industry, in particular, the online program here at K-State. Some of the things that we're going to just go over briefly this evening with you are, first and foremost, kind of what is the food science degree and what makes it a great choice in terms of a career path, why you might want to seek a food science degree through K-State through this online program. We'll give you a little bit of detail about exactly what the curriculum looks like, what sort of courses you would take as a student in the program. And then we'll share, towards the end, I've got some information about some students who have previously been in the program, and we'll share a little bit of information about that. And then lastly, of course, we'll wrap up with some contact information, and we'll have time to address any questions that you might have. So like I said, first of all, we'll kind of get started with why a food science degree. And I think the important question to start with as we dive into this, first of all, is to just talk a little bit about what actually is food science. I think a lot of times when I visit with folks about the food science program, when they hear food science, one of the first things that I think they maybe think about or that comes to mind for them is actually food service or cooking or culinary type aspects. And while there's certainly, that's an aspect built into food science, it's really not the totality of what the degree program is all about. So a lot of times, to me, I think the best way to describe food science and think about it is really those two words put together. When we say the word, food plus science, when I say the word food, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? We've all probably had at least one meal today, if not more than one. So, food, everybody has a sense of what that looks and feels like. Science, when I say science, a lot of times I usually ask, what kinds of, say, high school classes come to mind when you think about science? And a lot of times what comes to mind for people are things like biology and chemistry, maybe some physics, those types of things. And that's precisely what food science actually does, is we take those principles from those science-oriented disciplines like the biology and the chemistry, the microbiology, and apply them to the production of food, to do a variety of things, to create new food products, to deal with processing techniques. And one of the key areas is to ensure both quality, safety, nutritional aspects, that kind of thing. So again, it's much broader than just what we might think of as kind of culinary or kitchen type aspects. So what do food scientists do anyway? What kinds of things do they do? Well, kind of, as I just mentioned, they do a variety of things that allows them to combine those science disciplines with the production of food. So for example, as it lists here, monitor food quality and safety. That's a really important aspect. Developing new products and formulations. So when you probably walk up and down the grocery store aisles, no doubt every time you're there, you probably see something new, something that wasn't there before. As it says here, comply with laws and regulations. The food industry is very highly regulated, and it takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of people's resources to make sure that we're complying with all of those regulations. Operating and enhancing production and processing systems. So that kind of operational aspect is a key part of it as well. And then lastly, as it says here, innovation. So, you know, the food industry is always changing. There's always something new, meeting new consumer demands, all of those types of things are key aspects. And so like it says here, and much more. So that's just kind of a short list of things that food scientists do. So again, just to reiterate, you know, food science is not just that cooking pots and pans type aspect. It is a highly scientific discipline, and it really focuses on aspects that go from all the way from production to consumption. So that gate to plate or farm to fork that you've probably heard those terms before. So that includes the manufacturing, the distribution, the marketing, consumption, all sorts of aspects all throughout that production chain. It is really a great fit. One thing that I love about food science is that it's a great fit for students with lots of different interests, lots of different backgrounds. It's not really just kind of a narrow focus and not a good fit for just a narrow path of people, but you know, some folks are more kind of analytically minded or really kind of, they really enjoy that scientific piece. It's a great fit for those types of students, but it's also a great fit for students who have more of a creative side and who really like that innovation piece. Like it says here, all different backgrounds, rural, suburban, urban, a whole host of backgrounds. It's a great fit for those folks. As I'll talk in just a minute in a little more detail, we also have a really great potential for employment. So lots of excellent career options, really strong demand for students graduating from food science programs. And where do students go to work? We'll talk about that in a little more detail in just a minute too, but in a whole wide variety of places, from large multinational companies that you've no doubt heard of, all the way to smaller, more local type companies and everything in between. So really great job opportunities. And then again, the global food system, you know, when we think about the food supply, it's not just domestic, it's really a global food supply chain. And we do need many more food scientists. We don't graduate enough food scientists to fill all the demand, so we need more people. And again, it can be you. I have actually a short video that I'd like to play that I think does probably a better job than I can do of sort of describing the range of opportunities in food science. So I'm going to jump out of the slides for just a second and jump over to that online video, and hopefully it plays okay. So Sarah, I'll rely on you to let me know if it's not working properly.
Will do.
The great challenge that food scientists and the world faces today is hunger, distribution, waste.
And feeding billions of people. Those are the bigger challenges. Not only feeding, but feeding them the right food, nutritious and healthy food.
I think that trying to meet consumer demands for clean labeled eggs and provide them with the shelf life and the price that they've come to expect is going to be a real challenge. That's an opportunity, but it's also a real challenge.
Our biggest challenges are sustainability, looking at managing food waste, and then also feeding people who are food insecure.
Of paramount importance is the development of young scientists.
We are in a world of depleting resources. We need to find new food sources, new applications for food ingredients.
A great challenge that the food industry has today is keeping a clean ingredient line. We're changing ingredient lines, but yet still maintaining the quality and food safety that is necessary for great products.
We are the people that take what's coming out of production agriculture, try and maintain the quality of that as much as possible, minimize waste, put those into products that meet nutritional, health, enjoyment needs of the consumer.
I need to remind people that food processing is what's going to keep our human lives survivable.
We, the food scientists, can assure that the food we produce is safe for everyone in a growing planet.
I see bright minds, I see people with ideas, I see people who are ready to work.
So again, I really think that video does a great job of sort of describing the broad range of different societal issues that food scientists get to be involved in. So, why is food science important? Again, these points just sort of reiterate what you just heard in the video. Food scientists feed the world. We expect the population to drastically increase to 10 billion by 2050. And so, that's a challenge. We have to do less. We have to do more with less, right? We have a finite amount of resources, and so we're going to have to do more with less. And that's going to require innovation on the part of food scientists. As they mentioned in the video, consumer demands. We have to constantly innovate to be able to meet those changing desires of the consumer, to make sure that we are delivering the products that they're looking for. So convenient, affordable, nutritious, safe, obviously, is a key aspect as well. I think we're so fortunate, in this country to have one of the safest food supplies. We don't often, when we sit down to a meal, it's not that we're necessarily confronted front of mind with the thought of whether the food is going to make us ill. So we're very fortunate to have a safe food supply in this country. However, that's not to say that we don't still have a significant number of foodborne illnesses. So we have to continually work on that. But a safe food supply doesn't just happen overnight. It takes lots and lots of effort on the part of lots of people to make that happen. So food scientists get to be involved in a whole wide range of, like I said, really important societal aspects. And again, there's career opportunities like this graph shows. I know there's a lot going on this slide, and I know you probably can't read every little detail of it, but really what it's intended to convey is that there are opportunities really across that entire food production spectrum, really from, like I mentioned, from the production agriculture side all the way to the consumer's plate. And so lots of really great opportunities to be involved in a whole range of aspects related to that. So kind of, recapping all these different aspects about why you might want to seek a food science degree. It's an exciting and dynamic field. It's always changing, and we'll touch on that in just a minute too. The things that we were, worried and concerned about 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, are different than what we're focused on today, and they'll be different 5 and 10 years from now. So it's very dynamic, always changing, intellectually stimulating. Here at K-State, we do have a nationally approved curriculum by that organization, the Institute of Food Technologists, which is actually the organization that produced that video that we just watched. Again, the reason we're talking about this with you now is that we do have this online program. So we have both online and on-campus program options. And many of the same faculty who teach our on-campus course offerings are the very same faculty who are teaching our online course offerings. The other thing, the food science program, if there might by chance be any of you interested in either say a pre-health or pre-vet type pathway in the future, the food science curriculum really fits well with those types of options, particularly our on-campus science-based option. But for students interested in those areas, food science can be a great fit. We feel like we have great teaching, excellent advising, and some really great resources in terms of our research facilities as well. Relatively small class sizes, that's another advantage. So a reasonable student to faculty ratio. It's not as though it's a classroom full of 1,000 people. The student to faculty ratio is really such that you have an opportunity to get to know your instructors. It also has the opportunity or the potential to synergize with some other types of credentials. So for example, some minors and or some double majors in a variety of different areas. So for example, a minor in business is one that pairs very well with the food science bachelor's degree. And then again, I'll mention in just a second some opportunities for things like potential scholarships and also some potential internship opportunities as well. So kind of, getting to the more practical side of things, what exactly will you study if you're a K-State food science student? So within our program, we have a bachelor's degree that actually has several different options within it. One of those options is available on campus only, but the other two options are available in the online format. So the science option is available only through our on-campus program, but it's very similar. It has a lot of similarities with the technology option, which is available online. So the two options that are available through the online program are this business, kind of for shorthand, we refer to it as the business option. So the business and operations management, and then the technology option. And as it says here, kind of like the name probably suggests, if for students who have maybe an interest in kind of that business aspect, the business option is a great fit. Although you'll see in just a minute, there's a lot of overlap and synergy between those options. So they're not drastically different, but they just sort of allow you to focus on slightly different aspects as you move through the bachelor's program. I did just want to mention also that we do have an undergraduate certificate in food safety and quality, and that is a 20 credit hour program, whereas the bachelor degree completion programs are a total of 120 credit hours required. So this undergrad certificate, it does have a lot of the core required courses here for the certificate are also going to be some of the same core required courses that go into that bachelor's program as well. So prerequisites. So we do have some recommended prerequisites that we really encourage students to complete if they're considering the online program. It's about 30 credit hours of some what I would call foundational courses that really set you up for success in the later courses that you would take. So like it lists here, about 30 credit hours, a 2.0 minimum cumulative GPA. And the types of prerequisites that would include would be those that are listed here. So some composition type classes, that's the English 100 and 200, public speaking, a math class, so as it lists here, a general calculus or an analytical geometry and calculus, depending on which option you're pursuing. And then also these courses here at the bottom, principles of biology and general microbiology, and Chem 1 and Chem 2. So again, those are kind of the recommended foundational prerequisite courses that as you bring those into the program, they really set you up for success in the subsequent classes that you would be taking. So the bachelor's degree, as I mentioned, it's a total of 120 credit hours. For the business option and technology option, you'll see that it's, as I said, very similar, but slight differences in terms of the core required classes and some of the electives that you would end up taking. So within the business option, we actually have a built-in block specifically for business classes that can allow students to focus on that area. So like the graphic here on the slide shows, there's a lot of, all of these options have a lot in common and would include courses like these foundational ones that I mentioned. So the chemistry, the microbiology, some of those types of things. But then they also really incorporate lots of different aspects from other courses. So things like nutrition, statistics, some biochemistry, some of the animal and grain sciences. So here at K-State, we have a variety of different key emphasis areas. Obviously, animal science is a key focus for us, but also grain science as well. And so within these processing electives, which are listed here under both of the options, students get to sort of choose which processing options they're most interested in and incorporate those into their program as well. We do also have a minor in food science. This would be applicable for students who are majoring in something other than food science. So for example, if a student were pursuing, say, an animal science degree, there's an opportunity to pair that with a minor in food science. So the minor in food science is 15 hours, and it's a combination of these core classes and processing electives. So some typical food science core courses. So those core classes, again, are what I would describe as taking those scientific principles and then applying them to food in various ways. So for example, food chemistry, food microbiology, kind of like the names of those courses suggest, you're applying the principles of chemistry to food products, and the principles of microbiology to food products. So for instance, in the food microbiology class, students get to learn about what I would kind of call the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good, meaning those organisms that we actually use in a beneficial way, like say to produce fermented food products, that kind of thing. The bad meaning the spoilage organisms, those ones that we want to avoid. And then the ugly, those being the foodborne pathogens that we certainly don't want to include in the food supply. So again, it's applying those principles from microbiology in the particular context of food production. Others that are listed here: food processing, food analysis, product development. So product development would be an example of a class where students get to actually use that creative side and kind of come up with new food products, develop new products, new flavors, new applications, those types of things. Quality assurance, as I mentioned, is really important. That focuses on ensuring that the products that are not, well, our incoming ingredients are meeting our specifications, but also the products that are leaving facilities are meeting all of the standards that we would expect them to meet. And a whole host of other things here. So beyond just the curricular aspects, so beyond just the classroom components, there are some opportunities to be involved in other components of the program. In particular, like listed here, potential for internships. And again, this can the opportunity to do these can vary from person to person and kind of situation to situation. But if your circumstances allow, we often hear from companies who are seeking, have internship programs and internship positions available. And so as an online student, you have access to the Career Center resources, just like campus-based students do. And so have opportunities to learn about those internship opportunities. Study abroad and study tours. Of course, like a variety of things, COVID has kind of thrown a wrench into some of those opportunities as of late, but those are kind of, we're on the on-ramp to getting back to offering some of those in a more normal fashion. So looking ahead, we're optimistic. In fact, I think for the upcoming summer, there are a few study tours planned. So in the past, we've been able to offer programs that allow students to take various duration. It could be a short 10-day period or a longer semester to participate in those study abroad type things. And occasionally, again, depending on the circumstances from student to student and situation to situation, online students are eligible to participate in those if it's a good fit. And then undergrad research, I will mention that, but that is somewhat limited to the campus-based program because of the nature of the research aspects. But we do really encourage undergrad students to be, if at all possible, involved in the research aspects. The faculty who are teaching the classes are the very same faculty who are doing research in these various areas. And so oftentimes they can bring some of that experience and perspective into the classroom too. So again, lots of information here. I'm sure it's kind of a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but there are a whole variety of options available. And there's a whole host that might be a good fit for you. So some application deadlines, and I think Sarah's going to touch on these in a bit more detail at the end, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but essentially the academic cycle, or the academic year, if you will, is essentially divided into 3 major semesters. So the fall semester, which is actually the semester that we're in right now, that's essentially the August to December timeframe. Spring semester, which would be the January to May timeframe, and then summer semester, which would be that period in June and July. And so students are able to actually apply and begin the program at any of the points along the way. And those application deadlines are listed here. And again, I know Sarah's going to talk about that in more detail again too. The financial aid deadlines, and Sarah, I'm not sure if you're going to spend more time on this at the end or not, but just to be aware, there are, for students who are interested in considering financial aid, there are some deadlines for that as well. I don't have those listed here because they can vary. The best source of information for that would be the financial aid office or the student financial assistance office, and I've listed that website here. So that would be the best source of information for those financial aid deadlines. And so then, thinking about, well, what's next? So let's say, as students go through this program and they're approaching graduation, where do they head off to? What's next for them? As I mentioned at the beginning, we are really, really proud of the fact that there's a strong job market. There's really strong demand for students in the food science realm. In fact, collectively, as all institutions across the nation that offer food science programs, we don't collectively graduate enough students to fill all the demand. So a lot of times food companies are, looking for other types of majors to help fill that. So there's a really strong job market, really high placement rates, and really competitive starting salaries. So like it shows here in the middle of the slide, our median starting salary that we are hearing reported back from our students is in that mid $50,000 range. And of course that can vary with geography and the type of position and that kind of thing, but that's a pretty typical median starting salary that we've seen for several years now. So again, really good earning potential and great placement rates. Money isn't everything. It's great to know that there is strong demand for students after they finish this program, but it's also kind of about, what other aspects go into this type of an industry. This is a little word cloud that, again, that Institute of Food Technologists, that trade association that I mentioned that produced that video, they do a salary survey every couple of years. And in addition to asking about salary, they also ask about job satisfaction. So they ask questions like, do you still enjoy your job? Would you do it again? What do you like about your job? And this word cloud represents some of the common responses that people in the food industry give about why they enjoy their job. And as you can see there, it harkens back to some of those things that I've already mentioned, the fact that it's ever changing, it's really intellectually stimulating, interesting, never boring, creative. There's always something, it's a dynamic field, always something new is happening. And also there at the top, that concept of, everybody eats. So being involved in the food industry, you really are engaging in an industry that impacts everyone's lives on a daily basis. And so it's a lot of our students tell us that one of the reasons they kind of are attracted to this field is they feel like it's meaningful work. They feel like they're making a difference in the world. So here's just a couple of slides. I know, numbers and statistics are great, but sometimes it's helpful just to kind of see an image, see a picture. And so these are just a couple of photos that show some of our graduates over the past few years. Just some examples, Ashley here on the left side, she's working for one of those companies, again, that you may not have necessarily heard of, G&T, but they're essentially an ingredient supplier. So you won't necessarily see Ashley's company name on the store shelves, but her company would be one that's significantly involved in that production supply chain. Paul Lewis here in the middle, he's a student who actually used food science as a path to dentistry school. And then Nick on the right, he's an operations specialist with Land O'Lakes. And so he's more involved in that operational type aspect that we talked about earlier. Just a couple more examples. Mariel over here on the left side, she has a really tough job, but somebody's got to do it. She works in product development for ice cream bars. And so she spends her days working in sort of innovation for the product, for the ice cream bar area. Like I said, tough job. Amelia here in the middle, she would be another example of a student who used food science as a path to one of those pre-health or medical type aspects. She went to a physician's assistant program. And then Josh over here on the far right would be more of a corporate chef and kind of a corporate chef role for Pilgrim's Pride. And the other thing I did want to mention is it's not just domestic opportunities. Really there's the food supply is global, the food system is global, and there's opportunities really, across the globe in terms of the job opportunities. This map, which you can find a link to on our website, highlights all of the various places, not all, but a lot of the various places that some of our graduates have gone to work. And as you can see, obviously a lot domestically, but not limited to domestic placements either. I want to show, hopefully this works as well. This is a video that actually is summarizing the experience of one of our students in the online program. His name is Gary Van Breda, and this little video is about 2 minutes long, and it's just actually Gary sort of explaining why he chose the food science program at K-State and sort of what his journey was like. So again, fingers crossed this technology works for us.
the world is changing and people are moving around all the time. I certainly could not have finished up a degree going to class every day. Even in the state of Illinois, I couldn't have done that because I travel, and that's just part of my job. And I think that many people are in the same boat. My job today is one that takes me to all 5 continents, and I've accessed the system on every continent. Without that type of access and without the type of flexibility that K-State distance learning provided, I would not have been able to reach this point today. I think the unique thing about the learning that I got in the last 4 years was that I could really apply everything that I learned. So the learning wasn't just academic in nature, it wasn't theoretical in nature, certainly, but it was something I could apply to my work environment every day. You know, if life happens, I actually moved cities right in the middle of my 4-year story at K-State, and my academic portion left for about 2 semesters, but then I was able to get back on track again, and yeah, today I'm here. I certainly learned that you have to motivate yourself. Very early on, I had a full plan for taking me from 0 to the end of the degree. It's a long-term plan. It's not something that you can accomplish within a year. And the way I certainly was able to motivate myself was simply by looking at or by celebrating the short-term successes. So every semester, I would scratch out what I'd done, put up you know, a little sticker to say, yeah, I made it through the semester, and these small little victories actually added up, and I think now I have a sense of accomplishment because of that. Without it, I couldn't have done what I did today.
So I like that video just because I think it actually, you know, really emphasizes the fact, oops, we don't need to see it again. See how I can, there we go. So yeah, I like that video just because it gives you sort of some insights into the perspectives of someone who actually has been in the program. So, you know, as Gary kind of highlighted, the flexibility of the program, sort of being able to access courses from anywhere was a real advantage for him. The other thing that I appreciate that he mentioned is that it's not necessarily it's flexible. So it depends on each student's circumstances as to how quickly they move through the program. So, you know, Gary mentioned it wasn't just a quick path for him. It took him several years. And that's the way it's designed to be, is to meet the needs of different students in different circumstances. So again, here's just a few more pictures from some students here on campus. And again, you know, can you picture yourself majoring in food science at K-State? Lots of purple here at K-State. So. Obviously, if you have questions that we don't have a chance to answer here this evening, we're available to interact with you. We're happy to answer questions through email, a phone call, in-person visit may or may not be feasible for those of you depending on where you're located. But one thing that's not listed here is Zoom. I feel like that's one maybe silver lining of all of the COVID issues we've had lately, is everybody has a black belt in Zoom these days. So it's a super handy technology to just be able to quickly connect and touch base. So we're happy to visit through Zoom in the future as well if we aren't able to answer all your questions here this evening. So again, here's our website. You know, the Food Science Institute has this foodsci.kstate.edu. I'm sure that that'll be available to you. If you don't have it jotted down right this minute, no worries. I know Sarah will be able to provide that to you later as well. But there is some great information on the website too. So for example, that map that I mentioned is posted there. The various different curriculum sheets, the details of each curriculum option is posted there. So lots of great information at the website. And then, yeah, I think lastly, you know, just some contact information. And again, I'm sure if you don't have a chance to just jot all of this down right this minute, Sarah will be able to provide this to you later. So, but either myself, Dr. Thurston, Dr. Retzloff, one person that's not with us this evening, but Nicole Markle, she's our program assistant. So we have lots of folks who are ready and available to help answer your questions and point you in the right direction. So yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead, Sarah, and maybe stop sharing my screen now. And I think you have maybe just a few more things to add here, and then we'll be happy to take questions.
Yeah, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And I'm just going to kind of cover a couple other last minute things. I did put a few links in the chat. One is paying for school, just to kind of reflect on what Dr. Nooch was touching base when it came to financial aid. That link will show you information on that, but also on our scholarships for online students. For the spring semester, unfortunately, that deadline has passed, but we do offer them during the summer and fall semesters. So that will show you the deadlines and the application, all the information for our online scholarships. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So also in the chat, I went ahead and put the link for how to apply, where you can find the application and goodness gracious, the deadlines, all the information. So some important dates to really think about is, first of all, the next semester is our spring 2022, and that application deadline is January 1st. And that is when we need not only your application, an application fee, but also your official transcript. So if you're transferring from another school, or even if you're a freshman, we would need either your previous colleges and or your high school transcript by that deadline. One thing I do want to point out is that the university is closed from Christmas to New Year's, so the sooner the better, because it does take 4 to 6 weeks sometimes for our applications to be processed. So definitely sooner rather than later. May 1st is the application deadline. Sorry, keep hitting that button. For the summer semester. First round of classes starts in May. So if you're not quite sure if you're ready for the spring, definitely look at our summer. And then August 1st is for the fall semester. We are recording this. So we are going to send that out to everyone who registered here in about 7 business days. So look out for that in your email. And just as a thank you for attending and registering, we are offering application fee waivers for the spring and summer semesters. So if you would like to apply for either of those semesters, just email me. My email's on the next slide here, and I'm happy to answer any questions, help you with the application process, and grant you that application fee waiver. So we do have, it looks like Dr. Retzlaff been really great at answering some of the questions in our chat. So keep those coming for sure. Let me see what we got here.
And I did want to just mention that Dr. Retzlaff is actually our primary advisor for students in the online program. So she's a wealth of knowledge. And I think as she posted there in the chat, she listed her email address. If anyone has specific questions for their specific situation, I know she'd be happy to answer those. I do see one of the questions that was in the chat that may or may not have already been answered. Someone had asked if it's feasible to pair this with working full time. So if it's possible to pursue a program like this while working, a 40-hour work week. And I think the short answer is yes. In fact, it's designed to be very flexible. Obviously for someone who is working a full-time job, it's not necessarily feasible to take as many course credits as someone who's not working a full-time job, but that's okay. It's intended to be flexible for students. So yes, in fact, a lot of the students who are in our online program are not full-time students necessarily. That's not their the only thing that occupies their time. They're balancing that with various other aspects, including full-time jobs and that kind of thing. So yes.
Great. Yeah, definitely make sure to keep those questions coming. We did touch base a little bit on the certificate program. One thing I always like to mention to students is with financial aid and scholarships, those are only able to be used for degree seeking. So if you do want to pursue the food science certificate or a post-baccalaureate minor, unfortunately, you're not able to, you're not eligible for financial aid or scholarships. So those would be only used for degrees, bachelor's, master's, PhD. So I always like to point that out. I know that's always a very big question. Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of any other last minute things. Yeah, January 1st is the deadline for the spring. And my email is here. So if you want to take advantage of that application fee waiver, just email me at online@ksu.edu and that will get right to me. And if you have any other questions after this and I don't know the answer, I will definitely get you in contact with one of these great ladies here tonight, and they will be able to help me with those. So here's one question. What kind of demand is there for food science applicants? In other words, how much competition is there for jobs?
Yes, so I can answer that maybe generically, and then Dr. Retzloff, feel free to put any additional information in the chat that you think might help supplement that question. But yes, there is very strong demand for applicants. So it's rather than. We see lots of companies, especially right now in the fall, they're looking for people to fill their positions, and kind of like is the circumstances everywhere, they're really seeking applications. They oftentimes don't have, maybe enough applicants. We sometimes in our campus-based program, it's not uncommon for some of our seniors to see multiple job offers. And so they're picking between more than one job offer. And so, it really kind of depends on the student as well, in terms of maybe where they're willing to locate geographically, that kind of thing that can impact, what sort of opportunities are available. But overall, I would say very strong demand for students in this that are coming out of the food science programs. Yeah, so Dr. Retzloff just posted in the chat, if you have the ability and you're willing to relocate, the sky's the limit. There's really kind of no limit to the opportunities that would be available.
Yeah, and Dr. Thurston added, we see almost all our students get positions prior to or soon after graduation, which is always great to hear. Position are across the food industry, but also government agencies. Yeah, so students working in the USDA. Another question, would this degree also be applicable to other areas of manufacturing, such as personnel care, etc.?
So yeah, I can maybe address that kind of generically. So I would say to some extent, we actually do see some students who come into our food science program from other areas. Like, for example, because of the strong demand for people in the food industry, we sometimes see students who maybe have previously been in, say, a more of a pharmaceutical manufacturing area or something like that, thinking of transitioning into the food industry. That's not to say that they couldn't also go the other direction, but I can't really speak to whether or not there's strong demand for food science majors in other manufacturing areas. But I do think a lot of the kind of the common skill sets, the skill sets would be somewhat similar across those, yes.
Great question. All right. Any other questions? Last call. And again, if you come up with anything after the fact, definitely email us. We're happy to, as they said, we can chat by email, phone, any really, any way, Zoom, that is the most common I have seen. So, yep. And Dr. Retzlaff has put her email in the chat there. I put some links in the chat as well, so definitely go see those. And Just thank you everyone for attending tonight and taking the time to learn more about our bachelor program, our food science programs, and yeah, reach out if we can help with anything else. We appreciate it. And thank you so much to Dr. Nooch for presenting, and all our other faculty members that are present tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be with you all. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Well, have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much again.